Greetings, this is Utu Lauturi from wet, grey and slushy Finland with my first tutorial on experimental sound design. Now, there are a lot of great videos on mixing and mastering and plugin work all around the web, but they mainly focus on pop, rock, dance, hip-hop or even metal music. And I found no real videos on ambient, drone, or experimental sound design or the techniques that go into making these types of music, which is a shame because you really can get imaginative and work some fun voodoo on these types of music. I thought that I'd fill the void on my part a bit. I hope you enjoyed the video and bear with me. This is my first video. Bear with my English skills and I hope you come out with some useful tips or techniques. This is a collaboration piece with an artist called Oberlin. We've worked on a collaboration track before and this is our second piece together. This is a fairly simple session. I'll run you through what I started with and what I ended up with. It all started with Oberlin's modular synth track. The track is over here. It looks like it's in stereo, but actually it's in mono. And I'll play you pieces of the Oberlin synth session so you can hear what I started with. I just opened the position plugin over here so you can see that it is actually in mono. Really nice trance-inducing ambient drone track there from Oberlin. I was very happy to get it, and I thought since it's in mono, it would prove a great challenge to work with it. The first thing I did was I thought, what can I add? I wanted to keep it simple, and I remembered I'd recorded earlier a Korg Monotron mono track with a Monotron routed through some distortion and delay pedals. And I'll just play you pieces of the mono track of the Korg Monotron session I had, which I thought might be useful in this collaboration. I knew I didn't want to use it all, but there was this slow pulsating industrial type gnarly rhythm I thought might work pretty well with Oberlin's synth drone. The way I usually start working is that if I have a mono track, well, I might do it with a stereo track as well, but especially if I have a mono track, I always divide it into a few frequency slices. In this case, I took both of the tracks, both my Korg Monotron track and the Oberlin track, and I sliced them into low and high frequencies. So here's Oberlin's track up here, and you can see I've cut away all of the high frequencies above about 550 and some of the bottom too, because I knew that my monotron session had a fairly decent amount of sub bass that I wanted to use. So I'll play what the Oberlin bottom track sounds like on its own. Because I wanted to make this mono track wider, and I was interested in making this spacey drone atmosphere, I used a Waves plugin to transfer it from mono to stereo and give it a little bit of color as well. And here's what it sounded like after the EQ and Jack Joseph Puig bass plugin. I'll just switch through before and after so you can hear the difference. As you can hear, I wanted to keep the bottom, as I always do, quite in the center. I've taken down the width quite a bit, and that's because I found if you let the bottom frequencies wander all around the place, it'll get the track a bit muddy. And although I'm doing ambient style music, I want to keep it all crisp and clear. So this is the bottom part of the Oberlin originally mono modular synth session. And then I cut the other half into high frequencies. Let's listen to what it sounds like. Now, finding the right frequencies from which to cut a track into low and high parts is pretty important. If you cut at the wrong place, or if you let too much of the same frequencies come through both tracks, you might get some phasing and other nasty stuff going on. Now you might see that I've wanted to enhance some of the high frequencies on this Oberlin track, so I've pushed up some parts of the EQ. And now I'll play the Oberlin track as it was in the beginning, and then how it sounds like after I divide it into two frequency slices and put on some EQ and mono to stereo plus some FX. And also I've worked on with Ableton's utility, which is basically only to control the volume or the stereo width. Here goes. So first the original, and then what it sounds like after slicing it and working on it a bit. Here goes the original. You can hear there, I've enhanced the high frequencies and cut some of the low, very low frequencies off at this stage. And that's because I know that my Korg Monotron has so much low frequencies in it. So, this is my first step usually, to break the track into 2, maybe 3 frequency slices and start working with them. At this point, I added a little bit of reverb. I'm using a Toroverb, which I EQ'd a bit, and I always automate the verb in some way. This time I automated just a bit of the size so it'll open up a bit more later in the track, and also in an important part automated a bit of the frequencies it works on with. Then to the Korg Monotron track. First of all, I wanted to find the spots I can use, and I found a few loops I can use from the middle, and then from the end I took a bit as well as from the beginning. And I did the same thing then with the Oberlin track. I sliced my track into low and high parts, and I'll run you through what I did with them. First, the low part. I had to work with this quite a bit because it does have some good sub bass in it, but I really wanted to enhance the pulsating rhythm. So here it is, first without any effects, and then I'll run you through the effects I used. First, I wanted to clear all that high stuff out, so I put a FabFilter Pro Q Mono EQ on it, just to really cut most of the high stuff off. Everything below 25, 20 just makes it more muddy if you leave them. Cut, cut, cut. After cutting the high frequencies off, I put this wonderful Brainworks Boom plugin. I use this if I really want to bring up the boom in something. This plugin really works the way it says, and you can hear the difference before and after. It really brings out the boom. After cutting and enhancing, it was time for some compression, and I really love the CLA Waves CLA 76 compression for some slower but rhythmic stuff. Put on some compression, and after that, one of my favorite plugins in the world, Soundtoys Decapitator. The Decapitator can really make or break a sound, but I'll just play what I ended up with, and you'll hear the difference. So first there was an EQ, I cut the highs off, then I enhanced the lows, put a bit of compression to keep it tight, and added some saturation distortion with the Decapitator. so you can really hear the sound getting distorted and low growling. But it had some high frequencies there I didn't want to use, so in the end I ended up putting Ableton's own EQ on it and just cutting everything above 84 off. And this is what I ended up with. Only the very low of the lowest, and with the decapitator on and the compression, it really brings a nice sub boom to the track. Now, because there's some low end on the Oberlin track as well, I put a slight side chain on it, side chaining from the low booms so they wouldn't interfere with each other. You can see the sidechain compression working, and I've automated the dry wet signal so that in the beginning it's very low, and as the sub bass grows, uh, it'll also work more, and to the end where there's a little bit of rumble, get out of it, because working sidechain with fast rumbling sound just distorts the signal. And I'll play the low end of the whole track together for you now. So I automate quite a bit, and mostly a lot of volume automation, but I always automate the reverb as well. As you can see over here, there's some reverb automation going on. So that's the bottom part of the track, the bottom frequencies. And now for the highs. I played you the Oberlin high frequencies, and now I'm going to play you the Korg Monotron highs, how I worked on them. First of all, I added a FabFilter Pro Q mono, and as you can see here, I've also wanted to enhance some of the high frequencies because there was such a wonderful crunch in this track, and I really wanted to bring it out. So let's listen to it before and after the EQ. That kind of sounds are really honey to my ears, and I could just go on for hours listening to those crunchy textures. Antares has a really nice set of plugins for vocal use, but in experimental music, ambient music, drone music, there are no rules, and I've found you can really use them to your advantage working with different kinds of tracks. So the Avox Warm Distortion Saturation plugin is a great example. It's very slight, but it definitely brings more color and gives some nice saturation. Now, the Korg Monotron track was also in mono, and I wanted to make it stereo so I could get it a bit wider and working more. So I put a Jack Joseph Puig plugin, a guitar plugin, transferring it from mono to stereo, and adding some effects on it. I wanted to bring out the high frequencies even more, cut down the low frequencies, and give it a little spite, some presence and attack. Jack Joseph Puig plugins are really, really great. They eat up your computer's efficiency quite a bit, especially if you have such an old, crappy computer as I do, but they're worth it. So we have the EQ, we have the Avox Swarm, we have the guitar plugin, turning it from mono to stereo, and then I inserted one of my favorite plugins in the world concerning textures or popping sounds or whatever, Waves Transx Wide or Waves Transx Multi Stereo, which are transient enhancing plugins, and they give such an amazing popping, crackling sound, if you like. You can automatically hear how it's picking up those high frequencies and enhancing the transients, making the distorted, gnarly, scratchy sound even more violent. It also makes the sound a bit louder, so that's something you have to control quite a bit. The Transx Wide and the Transx Multi have various parameters you can automate and really use if you want to create textural, distorted, gnarly sounds. Then I added a CLA76 compressor on this one as well to keep it tamed a bit. Oberlin had named the track his own synth track, The Day of the Run, which ended up being the name of our piece. But somehow I got the vibe from that I wanted to make this track sound like traveling, like not running, but traveling in slow motion. And somehow I wanted to pan these Korg Monotron distorted, gnarly, scratchy sounds from side to side. So after the compression, I entered Pan Man plugin, and we'll see how that sounds. So you can see the compression isn't working that much, but since the track has quite a bit of dynamics, it's very important to keep it tamed. So the compression and panning. You can use this Pan Man in such a wide variety of ways. It's incredible, as all the Soundtoys plugins. There are so many things you can do, so many uses in different situations. But for this track, I just wanted a simple side from side, wandering, panning sound. And if I put it, the Korg Monotron and Oberlin's synth track, only the highs working together, you can hear what it's all about. Enter some reverb. And then the lows. as well. So that's quite a journey already from the originals that played together would sound like this. Really not that horrible, but compared to this, a lot sweeter. At some point I realized I really wanted a break, something that would ease the ear a bit, make the track a bit more interesting, and I found Oberlin had created a wonderful frequency shift or change in the middle, about in the middle of his track. So I did this highly automated uh, break in which I faded out the bottom frequencies completely, and I brought them back just before hitting off the second part of the track. And I'll play you the break now. I'll play it to you um, just as it is. So I think that really brings a nice pause and like a new beginning to the rest of the track. Then I also wanted to add something a little bit interesting to the high parts, so I added an Soundtoys Echo Boy, which I automated some. So this is it in a nutshell, what I did. Started out with 2 mono tracks, sliced them up into two different frequencies, the highs and lows, both of them, transferred them from mono to stereo, worked on some slight effects, and ended up with this. Let's hear a part of the track as it was when I bounced it out, ready for mastering. And you can really hear the Echo Boy working there. It has quite a long delay time and feedback, which I've automated as well. So Here are some of the techniques I often used working with mono, sometimes with stereo, to make simple things a bit more interesting. One last thing, I always mix and compose with my master turned up a bit, so it'll give me some more headroom in the mastering phase. Now it's 1.5 dB over, and when I bounce the track, I turn it down to 0, so I'll have a bit more headroom. So I'll bounce the track, and after that, I'll get on to some mastering work in the next video. Thank you so much for following through, watching, and I really hope you get some ideas or inspiration out of this. And I really wish to see how you make your tracks. I'd love to see your techniques, different styles or ideas. Always such a wealth of inspiration to hear and see other composers, musicians, or sound artists do their thing. Cheers. See you in the next video and mastering.